In Colorado, you can find religion anywhere, in churches, fields, even bars.
Chapel, temple, synagogue, mosque, traditional places of worship find themselves in a constant state of transition, evolving with the times, with technology.
And in a state growing as fast as ours, it means people are finding new ways of finding faith in our Colorado.
Welcome to Denver's historic Grant Avenue. Built to serve a thriving church congregation 110 years ago, Grant Avenue has seen a lot of change in how people experience religion over the decades. I'm Jacqueline Allen.
And I'm Eric Lufer. For the next half hour, we're going to take a look at how faith communities in Colorado are evolving as our population grows.
We're also going to look at how places of worship are making sure the younger generation is staying connected. First, let's look at the numbers. More than 5.6 million people now call Colorado home. Nearly 600,000 of those people joining our state in just the past 8 years. But when it comes to religion, we're kind of all over the place. According to the Pew Research Group, more than 2/3 of people in Colorado say they're affiliated with a religion. And another study found about half of Coloradans consider themselves not just religious, but highly religious. Yet only about 3 of every 10 of us regularly attend church.
There's been a marked decline in church attendance.
Thomas Wolf is the president of the Iliff School of Theology.
People are still spiritual, but they're not defining themselves as religious, which means they don't always attend worship on a Sunday morning.
Dr. Wolf says despite the fact that many churches are seeing a decline in attendance, the number of people asking questions about faith and religion is slowly rising as young people try to find a place where their beliefs fit in.
There we go.
People are looking for a community that has a transparency and an integrity that they can attach to.
Young single adults in their mid-20s to early 30s usually don't join synagogues. That's a national trend.
Rabbi Joseph Black of Denver's Temple Emmanuel says people who do come to services do it not just to be closer to God, but to be closer to each other.
There was a humorist, I think his name was Sam Levinson, who said, there's 2 kinds of people who go to synagogue. Mr. Goldberg comes to talk to God, and Mr. Ginsburg comes to talk to Mr. Goldberg, and both of them are holy. And I believe that.
He says it was that need to be part of a community that overfilled the sanctuary at Temple Emmanuel during services after the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting.
I think people were shaken by that experience. One of the functions of religious institutions is to give people a place to feel connected, to feel empowered, to feel that there are questions that need to be asked, even if we don't have answers.
The rabbi says while young people may not be as likely to go to temple as their parents and grandparents, the desire to connect to something tangible appears to increase with age.
What we strive to do is to create meaning and purpose. That's what a synagogue, that's what any religious institution should be.
I think they find in the Catholic Church something that's stable, that has life, but it really connects them to something that's perennial.
Father Jason Wanch says it's the need to be a part of something that can't be found on a phone, a tablet, or a computer that's leading many young people to return to church.
We're longing for that beauty and the truth that is more than just what I can kind of grasp on my cell phone, that I control.
What's different now than a few decades ago is people are finding they often connect with different faith communities than they were brought up in.
I'm a convert to the Catholic faith. I didn't grow up Catholic.
People have adopted a much more eclectic kind of spirituality.
It's that desire to explore spirituality, to find a more personal way to worship that's defining a younger generation.
I can learn to do what I'm seeking from you in other places, but what I get from you is the assurance I will engage the moral discourse.
But these days, young people want to be a part of a faith community they truly connect to, and sometimes that means finding a path into the church that some may consider non-traditional. A Tuesday night happy hour isn't where you might expect a story on religion to start.
And it's so helpful for just making acquaintances, friends, friendly faces.
I came to this one tonight because I'm here to support my friends. I'm also here to network.
But this is not your typical happy hour.
This is Jews and Brews at the Cidery.
That is my first Jews and Brews.
Jews and Brews is one of the ways Temple Emmanuel reaches out to young people of the Jewish faith who are new in town, or maybe just looking to step out on their own.
It's an entry an easy way to stay connected with a synagogue and a community, which it's really hard to do that at this age.
It turns out with Jews that it's really hard to be Jewish alone, right? Nobody ever is like, I'm gonna go be a Jew and pray by myself.
Rabbi Emily Hyatt says these monthly meetings bring together people who don't always go to temple services, but want to feel connected for those days they do attend.
We are a people that requires community in order to pray. And this is just one more vehicle to that. It's this feeling of being with each other then gives you somebody to sit with when you do come to temple and when you do come to high holiday services.
There are lots of ways for people to gather themselves around faith values and commitments.
Reverend Dr. Kathy Kelsey says finding unique ways to connect people through faith communities is not new in Colorado. Religion has played a big role throughout our state's history.
Some of the congregations, Methodist congregations out here in the West, actually started by meeting in bars.
In her studies at the Iliff School of Theology, Reverend Kelsey has found many of the young people coming to Colorado aren't drawn to churches because they are still exploring what they believe, often connecting with churches out of a desire to serve the community with others.
We find connections with each other because of the kind of work we do, or the place we live and the things that we enjoy doing in that place, particularly in the outdoors here in Colorado.
And it's that need to be together, to be a part of something, that brings us all together.
Stuff like this, just having a Jewish community and connecting to other Jews, definitely is more likely to bring people into the religion.
We are happy to come to you and to be with you and to find you where you are. And tonight that happens to be at a happy hour.
But happy hour isn't the only way faith communities are bringing people together, and the desire to serve others connects generations. Churches have found ways to give parishioners plenty of opportunities. Every Wednesday for nearly a decade, Volunteers with Christ in the City have provided lunch to hundreds of Denver's homeless.
You want a plate though, huh?
Yeah. What started as an outreach program of Catholic Charities in 2010 has now taken on a life of its own.
God wants us to encounter not just God in a spiritual way, but in a tangible way. Things like community, I think young people are longing for that.
Many of the Volunteers with Christ in the City don't regularly attend church, choosing instead to spiritually connect with their world through service.
And I think spiritually that means the young people just don't want to find a God in your own image and likeness. You know, it's great to connect where people are at, but I think people want to be connected to something that's greater.
It's that same thinking that has helped grow the congregation here at Belong Church in Capitol Hill, where Reverend Jasper Peters says parishioners are often involved in the church's work within the community long before they walk into this sanctuary.
Belong was 14 people hanging out in my living room 2.5 years ago.
While this congregation attracts people of all ages and backgrounds, their primary target is millennials.
There are people that we wouldn't have met in any other stretch of my imagination except for coming together to be not only a worshiping community, but a serving community as well.
Reverend Peters says his parishioners are more attracted to what church members are doing out in the community than what they're doing inside church walls.
When they see us actually living and doing life and living out our values around them, they're more likely to be curious about what's going on.
That's a lot different than most people have found churches to be.
I think the average or traditional way is you put up a sign, say, here's our church, and you hope that people will somehow find you. For us, we realize that that model doesn't really work anymore.
Both Reverend Peters and Father Wanch say people want to see that their church is doing more than providing spiritual guidance to members. They want to see it's providing a community.
I'd say that we really want to emphasize the positive aspect of God coming to us, and God's loved us, and let's emphasize the beauty of the church. Let's start with that.
You don't need 4 walls and a roof to have church.
Up next on Finding Faith, a new church on the prairie created out of the desire to connect food, faith, and farming. Here it's not just about worship, it's about building a community. We'll take you to the land and show you how it's bringing people together.
And later, we're going online with Colorado churches.
YouTube channels, the Catholic Stuff Good podcasts, you know, and they're kind of meeting people where they're at.
And showing you how technology is not just connecting people with their churches, but helping churches decide where they want to put down roots.
It shows us the trends that are coming, the things that are gonna happen in the years to come.
Everywhere you go in Colorado, you can find all kinds of beautiful places of worship, reflective of religions that have organized in all parts of the world. And while our state represents people from all walks of life, religion in Colorado is predominantly Christian. In fact, the largest single religion practiced in Colorado is Catholic, and you can find weekly services offered across the state in both English and Spanish. About 16% of Coloradans identify as Catholic. Another 48% say they belong to any of the dozens of other Christian religions practiced in our state. Then there are non-Christian faiths like Judaism, Hinduism, and Islam. Still, a third of us don't identify with any religion at all.
Finding the right faith community can be a challenge. For one church that's growing in Aurora, it's meant starting from scratch and literally growing from the ground up. These 10 acres in East Aurora may not look like much now, but for the families that attend services under the tent at The Land every Saturday morning, it's not what the land is, it's what it means. These days, parishioners are coming up with new ways to connect with God. In this case, here in Eastern Aurora, it's to connect with nature.
It really is returning to our roots and rediscovering what it means to be a disciple in the 21st century.
The circle becomes wider and wider and wider.
Reverend Stephanie Price says the land is built around a community focused on food, faith, and farming.
To have a place where people feel as though they belong and can call home has kind of matched alongside what it means to work the land in that agrarian sense.
We wanted to get people out here to connect with themselves, connect with friends and family, and connect with nature.
Landscape architect Greg Laudenslager has been with the land since the idea originated.
We started it as the Food Justice Initiative, and then we realized we wanted to do something different.
That something different is now getting a lot of notice. The number of people coming to weekly services has grown in recent months.
We've been gaining a lot of traction, and people love it. People love coming out here. They can bring their dogs, bring their kids, and be out here and hang out with everybody.
I think there's a beauty to it that ties into my sense of environmentalism and spirituality.
Libby Tart Schoenfelder is one of the regulars at the land. She had been looking for a church when she was invited by Reverend Stephanie.
I think that what she provides in terms of food and faith and environmentalism, spirituality, it nurtures me as a person.
While the rawness of this site is what draws many of these parishioners, there are plans to develop the site in line with the church's vision.
Right here will be a 2-acre edible labyrinth. So it's 1.4 miles to the center, 1.2 miles to the center, and 1.2 miles to walk back out. And it's 1 acre of produce that will come out of that. And then over this hill over there, there'll be an outdoor amphitheater for educational programming, for outdoor services. Services will continue to be outdoors, but plans eventually call for a structure where they can take refuge on cold weather days.
The cathedral greenhouse will be what would typically be thought of as a church, with 4 walls and a roof.
But we're still all contributing to the same cause of providing fresh local food to our neighbors in need.
And according to development plans for the area, there are going to be lots of neighbors.
This is an area that will have 1,000 acres of development around it. There will be a lot of open space, parks, more manicured kind of areas. But a lot of homes will be surrounding this particular acreage.
Homes full of people that could help grow the congregation if the land appeals to them.
You don't need 4 walls and a roof to have church.
Reverend Stephanie and her parishioners also respect the environment. They have a compost pile on site for people to contribute to. And those weekly programs you get at the door when you go into church, at the land, they don't print them. You're asked to download them on your phone or tablet.
Still ahead on Finding Faith.
You see Bishop Barron, the great evangelist today, they're Catholics. A lot of them are using media.
Faith groups changing with the times.
We have a lot of social media savvy people who understand what works and what doesn't.
How they find balance between online and face-to-face interactions.
And then
we live in a world of change, so change is our teacher.
In a world of change, the importance of staying focused on a core message.
People see religious institutions as places where they can come to find meaning and answers to life's ultimate questions.
Do you like mentor them?
Yeah.
Do you like talk to them about this is what it means to be a priest?
I just tell them a bunch of stories about the crazy things that have happened to me in my ministry.
That was a clip from the podcast Catholic Stuff You Need to Know. The priests behind it are based in Denver, but their thousands of followers are from all over the world.
Technology provides an interesting challenge for faith communities.
On one hand, in this day and age, it's hard to be an entity, church or otherwise, without a Facebook page, Twitter account, and website. On the other hand, church is the only place where many people go where they can escape all that.
What's in between is a delicate balancing act that's constantly evolving.
You go to a restaurant, people are all on their phones.
Father Jason Wanch has definitely seen the downside to technology.
I feel like we're all like these kids on a bus who are just on our cell phones, and you look out the windows and you see all this, we're missing all the countryside, let alone getting out and getting into it and encountering it.
The most important thing that we do with social media is to tell people what we value.
Reverend Jasper Peters says the Belong Church uses their social media accounts to bring more attention to what members are doing outside church walls than within.
We have a lot of social media savvy people who understand what works and what doesn't. We want to actually show our character and not just hope that people will see something about us and come visit us.
But Belong has found other uses for technology.
So it shows us the trends that are coming, the things that are gonna happen in the years to come.
Like deciding where to put their church when it came time to put down roots.
In this kind of lighter tan color, which is pretty abundant around our church, these are folks who are more likely to resonate with us.
Reverend Peters and the other founders of Belong used the data on the Mission Insight website to find an area of town with plenty of people they thought their church would relate to, a group called Young City Solos.
They tend to be in my same age group, give or take 10 years. They tend to be looking for community.
And most of them have moved to the metro area in the last 10 years, which studies say means the likelihood they've connected with a faith group is slim.
And when we think about what has happened in Denver in the last few years, there's a massive number of people who've come in here who are looking for community.
The website also allows them to see how their chosen neighborhood is changing.
We've learned that our neighborhood is historically rather diverse, but rapidly gentrifying. And so how can we be sensitive to the people who are displaced, but also be sensitive to the people who are coming in, the new people in the neighborhood?
You got to meet them where they're at. You know, you see Bishop Barron, the great evangelist today, they're Catholics, a lot of them are using media.
Father Wanch sees a definite place for social media as long as it's focusing on the beauty of the religious community.
They have good YouTube channels, the Catholic Stuff, good podcasts, you know, and they're kind of meeting people where they're at, and even in those good things, they're really showing a real humanity. They're making themselves see, wow, these guys are actually really authentic and they have something to say.
Authenticity is what all religions strive for, each finding it in their own way.
Changing demographics, changing technology, religions have been adapting with the world for thousands of years.
So really, the challenges they're facing today are nothing new.
One of the phrases that we use constantly is here in Hebrew, it's Hayashan yitchadesh v'chadash yitkadesh. May the old be made new and the new be made holy.
Faith has been changing with the times for thousands of years.
People see religious institutions as places where they can come to find meaning and answers to life's ultimate questions.
And as Colorado's population continues to grow, the speed of that change will likely increase.
We live in a world of change, so change is our teacher.
Change helping more people find the places they belong.
Our faith ought to be the thing that drives all that we do, the way that we work, the way that we treat each other, the way that we engage with our friends and families, and the way that we believe that we can transform the world around us.
Looking at what's out there around you and understanding who created this and just feeling like you're part of a presence.
Sometimes that presence is based in traditions that are thousands of years old.
There's colors, there's smells, there's sounds. I mean, it's very visceral. It's pointing to something mysterious. You can't see, but is real that's happening.
But other times, finding that true connection with the faith community means finding something new.
Where they don't draw exclusively from one tradition or another, but they kind of feed their spirit with the wisdom of other traditions.
And that helps us to see that you can't simply define community based on the four walls that we exist in on any given Sunday.
Sunday, Friday, Wednesday, faith isn't just about going to church on Sundays.
If you're looking for something to connect to, you may find it first outside a building like this.
Thank you for joining us for this Our Colorado special.
For all of us at Denver 7, we'll see you next time.